Well, hello, Isaac, my good friend Isaac Asiata. For those of you guys that don't know who this gorgeous gentleman is, he and I have been friends for a few years and go way back. We were just talking about how old we are, so that's kind of disturbing. But played football, has done some amazing things, has kind of pivoted a little bit here in the last few months as far as taking a different direction. And on our podcast of The Greatest Version of You, a lot of it is designed on how that's an evolution and how we all kind of become our own greatest version of ourselves. And through transitions and changes, obviously that plays a huge part in it. But let's talk about how we met. Okay.
I don't know exactly the moment that we met, but we met through back when I was in college when my roommates were guys that went to Euless, Texas.
Right, Trinity
High School.
Yep.
And their like football mom was Tracy Westrom.
Yep.
And you guys worked with Kayani. And then that's how I met you. And then I think I knew your daughter's boyfriend at the time.
Yeah.
Jesse's boyfriend. And that's about it.
That's awesome. It's amazing. All of my kids bring these networks into my life as well. So, and then we hung out at FitCon for a little while
we did
too.
FitCon.
Yeah,
I wasn't that fit at that FitCon.
Stop it. Ray Lewis was there.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of fun too. But were you with us when we went to Chuck Wagon too that one time? Oh my gosh, you guys. If you've never been to Chuck Wagon, you're not missing much. But that was not a good endorsement, by the way. But what's funny about that, we spent 4 years in Wyoming when I was little. And every time we would come to Utah, my dad wanted to go to Chuck Wagon. So it was cracking me up when the Trinity boys always wanted to go eat at Chuck Wagon. And
I've never heard of it.
Oh my gosh. Again, it's I guess it's called Chuckarama now.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
I've been to Chuckarama.
Chuckarama.
Okay, never mind.
Sorry,
so we're not looking to get Chuckarama.
That was the
as
old
a
school name. It used to be called
Wagon.
Chuck Wagon. Now it's called Chuckarama.
Chuckarama. Back in the early years of Utah football, before they had the new facility, we would get dinner vouchers to Chuckarama.
Oh, you did.
Every Friday night. So.
Okay. I was always like, hey, we're going to go eat. And they're like, meet us at Chuckarama. And I was thinking, there's so many great places downtown, you guys. But it was all you can eat.
All you can eat is
and then all the workers at Chuckarama see the Samoan family enter in.
Right?
They're just like,
double time.
I know.
We're going to put these guys to work. I love it. But okay, so you grew up in Utah County.
Yep.
We live in Utah County. Somehow we all ended up University of Utah fans, which is kind of rare down here a little bit. But did you grow up a Utah fan or did you grow up a BYU fan?
I grew up a fan of whoever my friends were fans of.
Yeah.
So BYU was the hot ticket at the time, I guess. I didn't really have I wasn't really a big fan of any other team other than maybe USC just because Reggie Bush. It was more I was like a fan of players versus a team. But all my friends, they're all diehard BYU fans. And I grew up 10 minutes south in Spanish Fork. So, I mean, I wouldn't say I was a BYU fan. I just was kind of like a bandwagon. Just going with the crowd, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
That's kind of how I grew up. My dad, my mom went to BYU. All my siblings went to BYU. And we kind of bounced around everywhere. But we spent most of our time growing up in California. And so we go to the Holiday Bowl when they were out there and that kind of stuff. But when I got married, my husband was going to BYU, and you know John, but he, after we got married, he couldn't take it anymore and had to transfer to the U. And
good man.
Yeah, smart decisions. But just fell in love with the culture and the teams. And we were there. Football was just kind of making a name for itself. But we were there the Doliak years and Van Horn and, Andre Miller and the basketball. But and now, people are struggling to go watch the basketball team sometimes. But football's still a lot of fun to watch. But Utah football has evolved.
Yeah, it's come a long way, especially since my freshman year.
Yeah.
Even watching as a fan, my fandom didn't really start until my cousin Matt played over there.
That's right.
Running back. And then it was kind of like, okay, this dude is a beast. But then he became a legend. He's a legend up there too. And that's when it was kind of like, Utah's always kind of been the bad guy.
Yeah, in Utah, it's the bad.
Yeah, and BYU, just because of the religion, they're all the really good people, proper, and then Utah's the bad.
They're the edgies.
Yes,
yeah.
And so that's, When I was announcing my Utah fandom in my early high school days, everybody hates Utah.
They were praying for your soul.
Oh yeah, it was bad. It got even worse when I got recruited. I remember I put a Utah sticker on my mom's car that I drove to school every day.
Yeah.
And somebody they used a blue Sharpie, drew a Y on it, but then they also drew on the paint. Like, it was bad. Like, that's how serious it is. And I was only a junior in high school.
Wow. So, yeah, I think a lot of people that live outside of Utah don't recognize the rivalry. Mm-hmm. And when you live here, there's no either or. So I think that's when it's rare when somebody says, oh, I like both teams, because you're thinking you're not a football fan then.
You don't like both teams.
There's no way you can actually...
Crap, so I got to change my answer.
Go ahead, Trev.
No.
You can't say you like
football. I usually say,
Yeah, that just means you're not actually a football fan.
So that's not a good cop-out then.
No.
Okay. Sorry, bro.
It doesn't work. I actually saw some guy walking around with a red hat with a Y on it, trying to be like,
Be both? Yeah,
I know.
It doesn't work that way.
I know.
I mean, it's different for me now because I've been a part of the rivalry. I played in the games.
Right.
I went to Utah, and then now having left Utah and having some ties down at BYU, like I love Kalani,
of course,
and I love Aaron Roderick, and so I cheer for those guys, but I'm not a BYU fan.
Right.
So there's a difference.
There is, and I've got a little one at home who, again, we live in Utah County, so all of his friends are BYU fans, and so he comes home and he's like, "Is it okay if I cheer for both?" And I'm like, "Yeah, until they play each other."
Yep.
And then
that's usually how it goes.
But he was with us with that game, watching just this last BYU Utah game, and he's like, "Oh, so we cheer for Utah because they win." And I was like, whatever you gotta wrap your brain around, kid. I mean, it's amazing as watching a 7-year-old even, seeing that rivalry and how crazy it can get, even in elementary school.
Yeah.
Like they all wear their colors to school, and it's almost like friends are divided for the day.
Yeah, I mean, like the day, what was it? They played Thursday last week?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, and then Wednesday before we flew down to Hawaii, we were driving around and like school's getting out, and all these little kids in elementary school, they're wearing either Utah shirts or BYU jerseys, and that's how serious it is. Like, it starts really young.
Yeah, and Utah here, it's definitely a cultural thing as well, with the religion and the schools and everything else. So I think it makes it a little more intense than some other places. Because I have friends that are all USC alumni and fans, and they obviously have a rivalry with UCLA and other teams back and forth, but they come up here to a game and they're like, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this.
There's nothing like it in the country, I can guarantee you that.
There's really not. There's not. But so, I mean, obviously, tell me what happened after playing at the U.
Yeah, so after I played at the U, 2016 was my last year. I entered the 2017 draft and went throughout the whole combine and Senior Bowl draft process, and was blessed to get drafted by the Miami Dolphins in the 5th round. And it was something I had dreamed about, and I always wanted to go to the NFL. I wanted to be, this NFL player, make money, take care of my family. Like, that was really apparent when I was young, and when it became a reality, it was hard to explain. Like, there's a video I'm sure floating around of the call that I got, and I was in shambles. I was so happy. Oh, it was so overwhelming. It's so emotional, and all the hard work paid off, and then I was able to go and be with Miami for a couple of years. So.
That's amazing. I think a lot of people don't understand that. They just think of it as a business sometimes, not realizing how all of your hopes and dreams and work, everything accumulated into that one moment. It would be hard to not have an emotional reaction to it.
There's a barrier that separates the guys who are the players in the NFL and then the fans who have a perception, but they don't see past that curtain. Does it make sense? And so that's kind of where the downfall of being a professional athlete comes from. And yes, you make a lot of money. Yes, you're doing something that less than 1% of the world can do.
Yeah.
But then people just see you as an object.
Yes.
Just something for their fantasy team, or, for them to place money on.
Yeah.
And then you're not a human being anymore because you make a lot of money. So.
And I'm sure you've felt that these last few months, especially. I mean, transitioning out of the NFL altogether. I mean, did you feel some backlash from that?
I did get some. There was some negative feedback from when I had announced my retirement. But you know, I had to do that for myself.
Yeah.
I haven't really made a lot of personal selfish decisions just for myself, and that was one of the ones that I had to do for me.
Yeah.
You know, I had just barely signed a new contract, and the money was great, and you know, we had great benefits. You know, my family was taken care of. I didn't have to worry about a lot of different things, but you know, you water a garden, somebody else's garden for so long, you forget to do your own.
It's true.
And so when I made that decision, it wasn't easy, but I knew that I had to do it for me.
Yeah. Well, and I think when you say you do it for me, I mean, you've got a family now.
Oh, yeah.
So I think you're still in a mode where you're not really, I wouldn't call that selfish. You know, there's still, especially you look at that sweet little girl. Oh my gosh, you guys, if you don't follow Isaac on Instagram and see this little girl, you're missing out.
She got all her looks from her mom.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah, she's beautiful too, but she is a doll for sure. But you can see how those motivations from having your own goals and dreams, and even in your recent decisions have moved towards the family, you know, those goals and overall what you want. I think in life in general and business as well, and I guess this is where it's hard for a lot of people to recognize that separation, because they look at football. For some of them, they're so used to watching from the sidelines and rooting for somebody else's dreams. And when they've attached their dream to your dream and that dream pivots and shifts a little bit, it's almost like they don't know how to handle it. And I'm assuming that's kind of the reaction that you got from some.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, that was one of the reasons. So I battled a lot of anxiety and stress in my NFL career, because before I had entered the draft, I kind of, my falling out of love with football, so to speak, kind of started my senior year at Utah. And the only person who really knew that was my wife. And I also got married my senior year. So newly married and having, you know, 4 more months until I'm off scholarship, until I'm not playing football anymore, having no idea what I want to do. You know, I had a degree, and I'm grateful that I graduated with a degree, but I had no idea what it was. I had a degree as a bachelor's of sociology, and in the athletic world, it's the football scholarship.
Yeah.
You know, that's the football degree where it's an easy one where you can just focus on football but still graduate. And I had put all my eggs in the basket of going to the league, and I was terrified of what I would do, how I would support my wife if it didn't pan out. But I knew that, you know, the beginning of me not wanting to really play football anymore started my senior year. Because truthfully, football was really all that I had until I got married. And then my wife kind of opened up a new door, so to speak, of what I can do, you know, and who I am outside of the game of football. And so, you know, not knowing what I wanted to do and if I'd be able to do anything after playing football for so long, I just kind of rode that wave of, okay, let's go to the NFL, let's try to do this, and let's try to be the best that you can be and get drafted so you don't have to, your family doesn't have to worry about anything, you know, my wife wouldn't have to worry about anything. And so that's what I did. And, you know, as time went on, you know, there were times where I was like, I really want to do this, but the thought of, I'm not sure if I want to play football anymore, still crept around. And I kind of had to bury that, you know, and then it was other people like, we want this for you so bad, and you don't want to let them down. And so then that kind of adds to it, then you got to bury that down.
And then at one point you're not sure what you want anymore.
And I didn't know, and I got lost in if I want to do this for me, or was I doing this for everybody else around me? I mean, obviously I had a family, and I had to think about my family, and this was a great, you know, path for me to take care of my wife and my daughter and set them up and set up my future grandkids. And
it was a foundation.
And but I didn't know if I wanted to do this anymore for myself. And so that was the constant battle that I had to play with every day when I went to work. So
well, and I'm sure when you're going through it, it seems like a burden, or it seems hard and stressful. But I've seen a lot of people, especially guys from the NFL, when they leave the NFL, I mean, they've been in for so long, then they don't know how to transition out of life because they've made that the only focus, you know, whether it's having faith outside of those things, having relationships outside of those things, having goals outside of those things. If they've put their heart and soul into something, and whether it's football or a business or a relationship, I think a lot of people fall into that category of not knowing how to transition without it falling apart. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because there's a fear of the unknown.
There is.
And as an athlete, you've been playing football or whatever sport since you were 5-6 years old, and that's all you know. Like the last real job I had was a concessionist at Spanish 8 movie theater in 2009.
Amazing.
Like that was 10 years ago, which was easily one of my favorite jobs ever. I just eat popcorn and watch movies all day.
But you couldn't really see yourself going back to it.
No, and so you think back and you're like, okay, well, I graduated college. I mean, it has to mean something to somebody, but you also don't know what you want to do. And the fear of the unknown was another thing, like I said, that added on to that pile of, okay, well, if you leave this now, there's nothing that you're good at. Like I legit was telling myself that for the last couple of years was, you're not going to be good at anything else. This is what you're good at. You might as well do it for as long as you can and make as much money so that when you do have to transition out, you don't have to work anymore.
Yeah.
And that was a lie that I, told myself every day.
It's fear-based.
Yeah. So it wasn't the most healthy thing to tell yourself every morning.
I think it's natural, though. I think for people that it's easier to keep doing the same thing you've always been doing than to, recognize that, hey, those same strengths, that level of commitment, that work ethic, that ambition, that passion, just finding something else to apply it to, you're going to have the same level of success. Yeah. But I'm proud of you, like super proud of you. And I hope you get more proud of yous than, negative feedback from this whole experience, because most people just figure, I've already made this decision, now I need to write it out for as long as possible. And we've seen this, your body goes out on you, concussions, relationships get harmed in that process because you're not where you're meant to be. It's not where your true purpose is. So tell me what you are excited about these days.
I'm really excited about being home with my family.
Amazing.
I've never been in the state of Utah not playing football in the fall.
Yeah.
So that's going to be different for sure.
I'm going to tell you, you were on a plane the day of the BYU-Utah game.
I was.
And I literally, it like registered in my mind, man, he's in a good place mentally if you can be on a plane not watching this game live. Because I think there's a lot of guys that'd be like, no, we can't take that flight because, you're still reliving that stuff.
I have days where I'm like, man, I wish I was still playing.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
I have more days where I'm happy that I get to watch now as a fan.
Yeah.
Than to be out there playing. And we got to go to Hawaii for a week in the month of August, which I've never been able to do anything in the month of August in my entire life, I feel like. And so it's nice to be home, spending time with family. Right now, I'm actually getting ready to test with the Provo Police Department. And so I will be doing what they call the end post in October. That's
exciting.
And if I pass my testing in October, then I'll start academy in January. So that's the new course that I decided to go down. It kind of came to me, and I took it and ran with it. I feel like this is what I should be doing. And, I spent so long doing something for money that I didn't want to do. And everybody knows that police officers don't have the best pay. And,
nope, they don't.
And somebody actually was like, they told me the other day, they're like, do you know how much police officers make? And I was like, I honestly don't. If my bills are paid, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Because I believe that, the life of luxury that people pursue, everybody wants to be rich and do all these different things and go to these exotic places and drive these nice cars. I've done that.
Yeah.
And it was great, but the happiest I've ever been is with my family.
Yeah.
And just hanging out at home. Like last night, we just made dinner and hung out at home.
Isaac, to be 26 years old and have that perspective on life is pretty rare. I hope you realize that.
Yeah, I've been told. So I've been told. But I talk to other friends my age. They think I'm crazy.
Oh, I think it's amazing.
Because they say that it's easy for me to say, which it is easy for me to say, because I've had those experiences. I'm lucky enough to have it that early in my life.
Yeah. But
I also know after chasing money for so long that it's not worth it. It's not worth it on the mind. It's not worth it on the body. And I just wanted to do something bigger than myself and something that actually mattered in the world.
Yeah. And whether they recognize or not, everybody ends up figuring that out. It's just you were blessed with perspective at a younger age, because whether you're 26 or 46 or 86, at some point, hopefully everybody figures that out. Yeah. And it's easier on the other side of money to realize those things, but that pursuit and accomplishment is not what brings that happiness. It's definitely being rooted in your passions and your purpose. And when you find that clarity in your life, you don't ever want to let go of it. That's for sure.
No.
I love that. So I have to give you a heads up, because all of your friends are going to come out of the woodworks after you join the force and be like, hey, when's my ride along? Like, when can I?
I actually have a ride along scheduled tomorrow with one of my buddies who's down
there. Because my husband, when he grew up in Bakersfield, California, and probably two of his best friends went into the Bakersfield PD and the sheriff's department. And him and all of their friends from high school ended up doing ride-alongs with those guys, just to have the experience. So
it's fun. I mean, I did one a couple weeks ago, and it was a graveyard shift, and it was really eye-opening.
Yeah.
The amount of work that police officers do, and if you think about it, anybody, you go throughout your day, and you generally just feel safe. Like, you don't feel like your life's in danger. You don't think somebody's going to run up and rob you or shoot, and that's a lot of that is because of the police department and your city's police department, and you don't even know who those guys are.
That's true.
And that to me is incredible. And those guys that's just their job. They do it because they love the city. They do it because they love what they do, and because they care about people who honestly probably don't even care about them.
Yeah, and I think that's an unknown aspect as far as creating just that security feeling of safety, which we definitely have here in Utah. Sometimes to the detriment. Like, sometimes we feel a little too safe. We're not being smart about things. But
Provo's crazy.
It can get crazy.
That graveyard shift, I saw some things. I was like, I didn't know Provo got down like this. So
that's because you were in lockdown for football. Have to be asleep by 10 o'clock at night. I love that. So Trev's trying to tell us something real quick. He's got questions too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just I'm loving the combo, and I'm loving seeing this transition happening in your life, because I think we can all agree. I mean, all relate, to some extent, because life is change at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's some self-deception happening, right? Obviously, from what you're saying, like, you don't have any other option, you don't have any other solution. And not only coming from people outside of you, but within your own head. What was that aha moment where you kind of like were able to short circuit that, so to speak, be like, you know what?
And kind of kick that thought out. So for me, one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but also something that came easy for me is, and that sounds confusing, but I was really good and also really bad sometimes at controlling the things that I can control. And it's such a broad statement, and it seems so straightforward, but there's so much behind that goes into being able to really be okay, and really be okay with, okay, my boss doesn't like me, or for me, my position coach doesn't like me, or this guy who's been playing football for 7, 8, 9, 10 years is in front of me, and you're so worried about beating him out, or you're worried about, what does my team think about me? What does the GM think about me? What do these fans think about me?
Wow.
Because every athlete in professional sports, they hear and they know what fans and what people are saying about them.
Yeah.
Reporters.
You live in a fishbowl.
Yeah, and and you hear those things, and you can deny it, but you hear it from any and everywhere.
And you try to pretend like it doesn't affect you, but
and then it does, and it rattles you, and it makes you second guess yourself. And those were problems that I had to deal with early on in my NFL career. And one day somebody told me to just tune it out, and that it sounds simple and not that big of a deal, but at that time, that hit me really hard. And for me, at a young stage in my NFL career, worrying so much about perceptions and expectations, especially as a rookie being drafted, and I'm supposed to come in and be a starter on the offensive line and help out and win games, but then I don't.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that? focused on myself. What are things that I can do to that nobody else has control over but myself, and I can't control what my coaches think about me. I can't control what the GM thinks about me or the fans, but I can control waking up every day, being to work on time. I can control my work ethic. I can control the time that I put in, how I study, and those are the little things that if you take care of all those things, I knew for me that no matter what was happened in my career, if I was to just do the things that I knew that I had control of and had no regrets there, that if I was to get cut, if I was to get, traded, anything, I did everything that I could. I can't control who's going to take me anywhere.
That you could personally control.
Man, how much damage do people do to themselves, though, not realizing they're impacting other people, though, because they're going for that fancy car, or that house. You know what I mean?
Man, that was me when I got my signing bonus. Funny story, and if you're watching, babe, I'm sorry. Right after I got drafted, my entire life, I always wanted to get my mom a house and take care of my siblings. But for me, I've always just wanted a truck. I wasn't a fan of exotic cars. They're not. I don't really care for them. I just wanted a truck. I'm from the country, and
my husband's the same way.
Yep. And so as soon as I got my signing bonus, I went straight to the dealership and I bought a brand spanking new Ford F-150 Lariat, and it was expensive, and they did, in my mind, they definitely swindled me bad, and I made this decision
because they knew who you were.
Yeah, my wife was in Utah at the time. I was in Florida, and I was just like, yeah, babe, the deal sounds great. It's gonna be great. They're doing no money down, and we can afford it, and the payment is only $1,500 a month for a truck. And I was like, I can afford that. I'm in the NFL now.
Yeah.
And so I did it, and I didn't tell her that I did it because she was just like, just wait till I get out there so we can talk about it. And I was just like, no, this is for me.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
I deserve it.
Yeah, I worked hard. This is what I want.
Yeah.
And so I got it, and I picked her up from the airport in it, and she lost it. I thought she was going to be so excited, and she lost it. I got the biggest earful, and it was just.
Yep.
So, and it was, but then it was probably one of my many terrible money decisions. My wife is the smart one when it comes to money in our relationship.
That's what your 20s are for, man.
Yeah, but that's where balance comes in. I mean, my husband was the same way. I'm the dreamer and the spender, and
that's me.
Yeah, no, we can do it all. Let's have it all. Let's do it all. Let's all of these things. And he was always future, and it does not require much for him to be happy. His level of happiness has to do with contentment. Least amount of stress possible, that's happiness. Me, it's the most adventure, outrageous, accomplishment driven. So the two of us coming together, I mean, we've been married 25 years, so we're starting to figure it out. But all of those things take time, and not just how to live your own life, but how to live it together. It's bigger than people sometimes realize.
Yeah, because I would rather. I mean, I tell my wife all the time, I would rather her be. Because she hates spending money. My wardrobe, our closet, our master closet, it's mostly my clothes. And she has a small little section, and I have all these shoes. She probably has 3 or 4 pairs of shoes she's had since we got married. And that's, I tell her all the time that I'm glad that she is the tight one when it comes to money. Yeah. Otherwise, we'd be broke.
Yes.
I wouldn't have had anything saved from the NFL if it wasn't for my wife. Yeah.
That's smart. Well, and again, that's why we're so grateful for good spouses in our life. But what's funny about that is now that we're older, our roles have switched. And partly because the first 15 years of our marriage, he was the one working and was, a workaholic and crazy gone all the time, 70, 80 hours a week as an engineer. And then when I started a business, it kind of morphed into me working more. And he was able to quit his job, and then he was a stay-at-home dad, and I was working all the time. And then I just retired a few months ago, and now I feel like I'm having to reel him. We don't need to buy anything else. It's good. Everything's good.
I don't know. I love my wife.
Kind of switched.
I don't know if she would ever be.
You'd be surprised.
Really?
I used to be the same way.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I'll be excited to see that.
But yeah, we all have different phases in life. But I love the fact that you guys are recognizing what you wanted when you were 10 years old is not what you want when you're 20. And what you want when you're 20 is not what you want when you're 30. And quite honestly, if it is the same, something's wrong. I mean, we're not growing as people and progressing and, changing into where life purposefully is taking us. And I love that you've seen that at such a young age.
It's a blessing to kind of get that perspective at, like I said, 26 years old. And because I have a lot of close friends that I've known since we were in middle school, elementary school, and I watch them and their families and their lives, and I can see that a lot of them are not happy, but all they want is the money.
Yes.
And I've tried to tell them, like, luxury and a life of luxury is what you make it. Like, I could, be in the NFL and have all this money and be happy, but I can also be on the opposite end and just have as long as I have my wife and my daughter, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people lose sight of that because all they want to do is just have all these really nice things, which is, if that's your motivation is to work and grind to get money, then that's great. Like, I would never take that away from somebody. If that's what you want to do and you're passionate about doing that, then do it. But if you're not in love and you go to work every day and you just dread it, you're not doing.
Change it.
Yeah, change it. It is not worth it mentally. It's not worth it physically, and for your family, for you to do that and put them through that, put yourself through that. It's not.
Well, and the money will dry up because the money really is a byproduct of the value that you give to society at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so if your goals are just strictly money based, that's kind of chasing a dried up.
Yeah, and happiness has a branding problem, meaning what people define it as is very skewed, meaning like they think if you have certain things or your family looks a certain way or you've accomplished certain things, almost like it's a check mark, we all get to heaven, we have a resume and that's what we were here working for. And that's not really how it works. But the idea, happiness truly is, it's not about having what you want, it's wanting what you have.
Yes.
And sometimes that just comes with, again, perspective and experience and failures and struggles. It'd be nice if someone could just put it in a pretty box and give it to us. But it's something that we all have to kind of struggle through ourselves. And I think living that rat race life sometimes, whether it's football or it's work or it's, whatever it is, starting your own business or entrepreneur or network marketing or whatever it is, you go through those things where you're just in the get up and do phase. And sometimes you don't have any reflection, like, is this really where I want to be? And so our last guest, we were talking about this, how you've got to have a place in your time and your day where, whether it's 20 minutes or it's an hour, where all it is just finding a way to reflect and think, and you're not making lists and you're not trying to accomplish things and you're not stressing over things. You're just in a moment where your mind and body and spirit come together and you can actually have a really honest, vulnerable conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
And at some point include your spouse in that too.
And it's kind of just your me time, right?
Yeah.
That's just when you can pull away from the world and you just kind of self-meditate and self-medicate, and for me, that's going on motorcycle rides.
I saw that motorcycle.
Yeah, and so that's kind of my new thing. It used to be video games, but then my wife was not about that at all. I can't sit and play video games for an hour, and I can't sit and play video games for 5 minutes, and it's not.
Yeah.
And then
grew out of it.
Yeah, you kind of grow out of it, and that was one of my new hobbies. Was motorcycles, and there's something about just going out on a highway road, a back road, and just pulling throttle and just ripping.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about anything. All you hear is the road, you hear your bike, and then you just see nature. And a lot of my woo-saw moments come when I'm just riding around, for 20, 30 minutes, come home, and it's a great release.
How's your mom feel about you on a motorcycle?
Nobody's happy that I'm on the motorcycle. My wife's not happy.
Mama Becky comes out at me, and I'm just like, keep that helmet on, be safe.
I have stipulations when I ride. My wife has stipulations, and so I got to follow them.
Yeah. My son, my 19-year-old, would just... He keeps talking about the day he's going to own a motorcycle. And
don't hit me up. I'd love to talk to him.
Oh, my gosh.
I'll get him. I'll take the fandom to a new level.
If you got him off video games to motorcycle, that might be motivating for me to be behind it, because that would be a good transition.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's a great hobby.
I like that story. So, yeah. But I think everybody needs that in their time. For some people, it's golfing. For some people, it's meditation, yoga, whatever it is. I encourage everybody to find. And for all the stay-at-home moms or dads or work, whatever, this idea of self-love, it has nothing to do with massages and spa time and vacations. No. Self-love is making yourself a priority as much as you make everybody else a priority. And especially as you become a parent, it's very easy to make everything else around you important, and you start to forget yourself. But the problem with that is our children watch us. Yeah. And someday they start to do the same things. They just figure that's what adulthood looks like. It looks like you give up yourself, you make it about everybody else. And then we watch our children become adults, and we're like, why aren't they happy? And it's because they're just mirroring what we showed them what adulthood looks like. So when people say, gosh, I feel guilty about the time I put into my own passions or my own goals, I say, you're doing the best thing for your children, because do you really want them to not have that same passion when they grow up? I mean, they need to see you accomplishing your dreams and living your best life and becoming the greatest version of you, because you are their greatest example. Let them know you can have it all. You can have a beautiful family. You can have a fulfilling career. You can have great friendships. You can have all of those things. It's hard to do them all at the same time, but at different seasons you start to develop those things. But if we don't do it, our kids don't see it.
Yeah, and I owe a lot to my daughter now, because my whole life I've just wanted to be a dad, to be a good dad, a great husband. And you know, I didn't have the best experience with my own dad. Him and my mom getting divorced when I was 5, and a lot of decisions that I made where it could have been really bad always came back to what kind of example would I want for my future kids? What kind of person would I want to be? What I want them to be? And just wanting to be somebody who they'd be proud of and who they would want to be like. And I've always made those choices because, you know, I want now my daughter to be everything that I am, that I've accomplished, but so much more.
Yeah, of course.
And I can see it. She's absolutely fearless. We went to Hawaii, and she's just running straight out to the ocean and playing. Like we dug a hole in the ground, and there was like 5 or 6 of these sand crabs, and she's just running in there grabbing them. She's not afraid, and she's so fearless and brave, and so many great qualities that I see in her at such a young age, and she's only 18 months now.
That's amazing.
So,
and you'll have those parent checks in your mind where you realize all their fears come from us. You know, you make her afraid of the water, or you make her afraid of the little crabs, or you make her afraid of walking or running or riding a bike, and so taking away those fears and letting them really find who they are. That's the hardest struggle as a parent. It's finding a way to clear their path so they can become the greatest version of them instead of the greatest version of you.
Yep.
Does that make sense? As a parent, it's very easy for us to think, just copy what I've done, but that's not their path. That's not what they're supposed to have. So we create this, I call it bubble wrap life, where we just want to bubble wrap them and protect them, but they don't get to figure things out that way. I mean, I see that a lot in our culture. The helicopter mom thing and the sports mom or dad, or, you know, where we're trying to live our own goals and passions through them, or we're trying to protect them so much that they lack the coping skills. And then when stress and anxiety does happen, they don't know how to handle it or push through it. And so it's the hardest thing you'll ever do as a parent is let your kids feel pain.
Yeah.
It's let them have anxiety.
That's pretty intense.
It's hard. It is hard. And I'm sure your mama has felt it watching you play as well. So, and make those life decisions too. But that's how you become who you're supposed to be in that process. How is mom taking it?
Mom's happy. She has season tickets for the first time, and so she's excited. She still goes to the football games, and you know, she's happy. She was worried when I retired, because it was kind of something that I didn't share with everybody.
Yeah, so it was unexpected.
Yeah, and it really was. Like, I had just signed in Buffalo, signed a new contract, was in training camp for a week, and then like everything was going good. Everybody was still sending in congratulations and that I'm excited for yous. And I woke up one morning and I knew that I was ready to be done. Yeah. And when you know, and nobody else can know or make that decision for you. And I knew, it was the first time in my entire football career that I was okay not playing football. Yeah. And I was ready to separate Isaac, the football player, from Isaac, the human, and the father, the husband. And so when I made that decision, my mom obviously reacted like a mom. She thought I got hurt. She thought, like,
what's wrong? Because
I guess there was some reporter had put out a tweet before I had announced that I'd retired that I wasn't at practice. My mom sent me a screenshot. She's like, "Did you get hurt? What happened to you?" And I wasn't really checking and being around my phone because I was with my wife. And so when I finally told them and let them know, she was, I just thought something happened to you. She was excited that I was, ready to walk away and be
good.
So
yeah, sometimes it's harder for people around us to accept that we've let some of those dreams go and move, especially sports moms. Like I've seen that with my own kids. And like when my daughter Josie had knee surgery, she was playing Division I volleyball at UVU and had surgery, and she was like, Mom, I'm ready to be done. Like, this is kind of my way to, she had been done for a while. I mean, when you start playing a sport, this at such a young age. It's like, I kind of want to experience other aspects of life. And talking about not having, for anybody who's not in the sports world or have kids that play sports, playing one sport is really a year-round process. It's not like when I was young where, my husband and I joke about this. Remember when we played sports where you just tried out for a team and the coach threw you a jersey and was like, get on the bus, and then you'd be home by 8 o'clock. And it wasn't a big deal, and nobody had to raise money for anything. It was just part of life. It wasn't, you didn't think about your professional career down the road, but that's very different today. So like your kids are in sports. You've got, if it's football, they start in June in camps, and then they're all there, and then they go through December, and then you've got off-season workouts and weights and training. So it never really ends. So as a family unit, being able to plan a vacation or have time with your kids. And we actually experienced this last summer because JJ just graduated high school, and then Josie's been done with volleyball for a year, and she's married. Nick, I think. Yeah, your families are all from the same area. And then my little one is all of 7 years old. It was the first summer that we just played like none of us had any responsibilities. I had just retired in May. We have this ranch in California, and then my kids, I made a deal with them that we would help support them through the summer so they didn't go get jobs during the summer, because it was really the first summer since they were like 10 years old that I can remember that we just got to play. Yeah. And it was so much fun.
That's so cool.
So much fun.
That's kind of where we're at right now. Like, I've never, like I think I told you earlier, I've never been home in Utah not playing a sport.
Yeah.
I've never been in this state in this time period. Usually in college, it is year round. So the only time off you get is in May, and that's for about 3 weeks. But then in the NFL, my off time was spent training in Florida. So I was never here during the off season, or never here, especially in the fall.
Yeah.
And so like we're planning all these things for like Halloween.
You're like, this is what life is like.
Yeah, and it's so exciting, and just like even just waking up in the morning and not having to leave at 5 a.m. and then not seeing my daughter until I get home and she's asleep.
Yeah.
And now I can wake up with her and see her in the morning, play with her all day long, and then I'm the one who gets to put her down to sleep instead of my wife. It's the greatest feeling. And as I transition to another career, I know that career will take up another good portion of my time.
Yeah.
But the newness of everything and life outside of sports and not being a football player anymore is different, but it's so exciting
and liberating.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to go and put my body through hell anymore.
Thank goodness.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't recognize or appreciate the level of sacrifice that athletes make physically in that process, and you almost just get used to not feeling what your body's going through.
Yeah. I became so numb to all the pain in my body that it kind of caught up to me, and I just would wake up and feel like absolute death every morning, and until I got in the hot tub and took some Tylenol, I did not feel good at all.
Yeah. And now you look at this little one and you want to be there for every little milestone and be healthy and fit and be able to do everything.
I'm curious about something, Isaac. When you're playing a sport at that level, right? You're in professional sports. Obviously, you're functioning at a different level, right? And a lot of the people around you, obviously, they train and they teach the players, to function at that higher level. So I know that you've pivoted away from, the NFL and everything. But obviously every chapter of our lives, it carries with it, some teaching moments, right? So what would the things be that, what do you still do today? And you talked about getting out there on your motorcycle, and that's kind of a reoccurring thing that we're seeing. we were talking to Justin Prince about just the importance of having me time in the morning and being more proactive instead of reactive. But what are some things maybe you picked up from, playing sports at such a high level that you implement in your life today to become a better person, be more effective?
A lot of things is as a professional athlete, it does fall on your shoulders. So you get to, there's a healthy level of stress and pressure that you learn to deal with.
Yes.
And I like right now I kind of just work this job where I work for a funding company where we just fund entrepreneurs and people doing startups. And I watch some of the guys in the office and they're stressed. And there's so much stress and pressure, but it's the kind of I can look at it and I'm like, I can handle that.
Yeah, you're like, what's the big deal, guys?
Yeah. And not only in that job or just in my life in general, there's a lot of things now. There was a lot of challenges and obstacles while I was a professional athlete, and now there's new challenges and obstacles I have to go over and face. But I haven't flinched, and I think I took that from my time as a football player, and I was able to make at the NFL level, you're faced daily with adversity.
Yeah.
And whether it's mine was I always had a kind of a bum knee, and so I would wake up every morning with my fingers crossed. So when I got out of bed, if I stepped on my knee, when I stepped out of bed, if my knee hurt, that when I get out of bed, I knew that the day would just suck.
Yes.
Or if it was swollen, but if I got out of bed and it was good, then it changed my whole day. But those are little adversity things that you have to face every day. And in everyday life, you still have to face it. Off camera, I was talking to you about some personal things that are going on right now.
Right.
And I learned how to deal with adversity. I learned how to deal with high pressure, high stress environments. And the trick right now is, like you're asking, to kind of transition those things from professional sports to my life now as a dad, as a father, as a husband, and then going into law enforcement. How can I implement those things? And a lot of it has to do with the work ethic that I developed, and really just putting that whole weight on my shoulders and knowing that no matter what happens, that I can handle those things. I've been there before. I know what it's like. It's kind of like when you're conditioning, you put your body through hell like that, but then when you come back to that point where you've been through hell, you've been through all that, you can push through it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm trying to find those things in life, where I try to connect the similarities between sports and everyday life.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, there's definitely a parallel there from a professional sports team. Everything is functioning at a higher level, meaning everybody plays a part. And then I think most people don't realize the stress when you're not able to perform at the level that people are expecting you to, that ripple effect that it has on the team and the program and the franchise and the league. And it does. It has a bigger role. But here you are joining another team with law enforcement, and obviously everybody plays a part too, from not just the department, but the city, the culture, the community, the families. It definitely has a huge impact, and I'm so excited for you to watch you transition to that.
I'm excited too. There's definitely a lot of similarities. Obviously nothing compares to the sacrifice that police officers, first responders put their lives on the line, and I can never say that football players. We were putting our bodies on the line, but very rare you're going to see somebody die on a football field.
Right.
Where, in this day and age, a lot of police officers are under scrutiny. A lot of them are getting killed.
Yeah.
And
they're not being appreciated at the level that community should appreciate them.
And for me, having experienced the other side, I guess, from the NFL, because there is scrutiny for players, and having been around players who kneel during the national anthem. And for me, because I have a lot of buddies who are cops, I have a lot of buddies who are in the armed forces, and their first initial reaction is they get upset. A lot of people do.
Of course.
And reasonably so. And for me, I know what it's like, why they're getting upset, but I know the guy that they're getting upset with, and I know his reasons for it, but they don't know those reasons because the media portrays it in such a negative way.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to kind of have seen what those guys kneeling are all about, why they're doing that, and then join a police department where I can be kind of a bridge of why they're doing that, why, people of color see the police that they do now, and especially the Polynesian community that we have in Utah, because
it's a huge community.
Yeah, and I know a lot of them don't like cops, but they don't like cops just because that's how they're raised.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of trickled down. But I love that gives you a perspective most people don't have. Again, and I think being able to see it from both sides is something we need a lot more of in this world anyway. Yeah. So I love that you're kind of marrying those principles together.
Yeah,
so
I'm hoping to. So.
You will. You'll do great things, and we can't wait to see you get sworn in and the whole deal. You'll keep us up to date, right?
Yeah, we'll keep it close.
Good. Well, we're proud of you. We're excited for you. The whole community is behind you. And of course, Mama Becky's always there if you need something. So love you, Isaac.
Love you too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for joining us. And definitely follow Isaac on his journey. You can find him on Facebook, on Instagram. And very soon, hopefully you don't find him at your front door on Provo PD. So love you guys. Have a beautiful day.